Government is to establish a working group to implement the Lethem and Linden-Lethem Road development plans.
The Foreign Trade Ministry clears the air on the Guyana-Jamaica rice situation as Jamaica states it is committed to purchasing its rice requirements from Guyana.
And government says it is offended at the recently released Transparency International report labeling Guyana as the second most corrupt country in the hemisphere.
Details of these and other stories, GINA News, and of course the latest sporting action in the Diamond Mineral Water and NCN Sport News after this. Stay tuned. Good evening, I am Janelle Prasad.
And I'm Paul Moore.
With this edition of the 6 o'clock news for today, Thursday, September 25, 2008. Paul?
Thanks, Janelle. Government is to establish a working group to implement the Lethem and the Linden-Lethem Road development plans. Cabinet Secretary Dr. Roger Luncheon said today at his weekly post-cabinet media briefing that Cabinet has reviewed the two projects and has no objections. Edward Lane reports.
The Guyana Lands and Survey Commission and the Central Housing and Planning Authority have submitted developmental plans for the Linden-Lethem Road and the Lethem area in anticipation of the Takatu Bridge opening. Cabinet Secretary Dr. Roger Luncheon says Cabinet examined the plan last week and is impressed with its contents. He notes that both plans propose the same elements which are vital to the area's development.
A plan was offered recognizing a future in which residential, agricultural, agro-industrial, recreation, and energy sector prospects dominated. The Linden Road Development Plan was couched in a similar fashion.
Dr. Luncheon told the media that urgent moves will be made to have the proposals implemented.
Cabinet endorsed both plans and agreed that development body, agency would be set up to implement the plan according to its design.
Dr. Luncheon notes too that the security elements of the road and the Lethem community were also taken into consideration. Edward Lane, the 6 o'clock news.
Jamaican Minister of Industry Carl Samuda has stated that his country is committed to purchasing its rice requirements from Guyana. While Jamaica has agreed to sign a draft agreement to this effect, a concrete arrangement has not yet been finalized. So Guyana's Foreign Trade Minister Dr. Henry Jeffrey sought to clear the air on the situation. More in this Shardalal report.
The MDG summit is being convened days after a new UN report shows that soaring food and fuel prices and the global economic downturn are impeding advances in eradicating extreme poverty and hunger, achieving universal primary education, and reduce child mortality. This is according to the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, has set the tone for the debate. Ban says while the world is moving in the right direction in achieving the Millennium Development Goal, the pace needs to be increased.
I urge you all stakeholders, to send a clear signal of readiness to reach agreement on the way forward at the Doha Review Conference on Financing for Development in December. Distinguished heads of state and government, excellencies, poor people around the world look to their governments and to the United Nations for help and solidarity. We are accountable to them. Here in this House, everyone counts. So let us live up to our responsibility.
The Secretary General says there must be collaboration among stakeholders to ensure that the 2015 deadline is met.
The current financial crisis threatens the well-being of billions of people, none more so than the poorest of the poor. This only compounds the damage being caused by much higher prices for food and fuel. We must rise to all of these challenges immediately. We must inject new energy into the global partnership for development. Excellencies, we are the first generation to possess the resources, knowledge, and skills to eliminate the poverty. Experience shows that where there is a strong political resolve, we see progress.
The Secretary General pointed out that education is critical in achieving the MDGs. He notes that the world has made significant progress so far in this area, as more children are in school than ever before, and that more girls are getting the equal education that they deserved. Edward Lane, the 6 o'clock news.
We apologize for carrying the incorrect story. The introduction to that story should read, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon has called for more energy to be injected into the global partnership to meet the Millennium Development Goals. He says this is necessary if countries are to slash poverty, illiteracy, and other socio-economic ills by the target date of 2015. Sentiments echoed by President Barry Jagdeo in his address to the opening of the 63rd UN General Assembly in New York. Acting President Samuel Hines says the IDB report on Guyana's energy wastage is unprofessional and is not related to Guyana in any way. He says the report falls short of observing, accumulating, and totaling instances of wasting energy. Mr. Hines reiterates that Guyana is not the greatest waster of energy, but uses more energy for every dollar of its livelihood. The acting president maintains that if the IDB wanted to make a case about wasting energy, the report should have presented direct estimates of the wastage of energy with a total balance for each country. Civic society is now gearing itself to take up the mantle in the condemnation of the Economic Partnership Agreement with the European Union. Sections of the private sector, various non-governmental organizations, and trade unions are slated to meet tomorrow to discuss the way forward. They are also gearing to position themselves to lend critical support the government's push for Guyana's signing of the goods-only section of the agreement. FITUG leader Carvel Duncan says the agreement will have an impact on the employment of workers and reduce business to an almost standstill. The trade unionist urges trade unions of other Caribbean territories to review the EPA and help in the push to have it revised. The government says it is offended at the recently released Transparency report, which says Guyana is the second most corrupt country in this part of the world. They believe that the report is based on the opinion of a few persons, while other reports, deemed more scientific, conducted by other groups, show otherwise. Edward Lane reports.
Transparency International, in its 2008 Corruption Perception Report, placed Guyana as the second most corrupt Caribbean country, ranking 126 in the world. But government has taken umbrage, noting that the report is based on the opinions of just a selected few in Guyana. Cabinet Secretary Dr. Roger Luncheon, at his weekly media briefing today, said government rejects the findings.
We have taken umbrage before at the reports from Transparency International from a number of perspectives. One, of course, is more visceral, and I suspect most people would react similarly when they're told that those who are close to us or even ourselves are indeed practicing or being party to dishonorable activities of this magnitude.
The Cabinet Secretary has further questioned the method used by Transparency International in compiling the report.
I meet Kwame over by the old Red House, and we're having a drink, and I said, Kwame, why will you think about this government? That is thief, that is lie, that is... Kwame said yes. And dutifully it is recorded as an opinion. And they meet their colleagues in the private sector. I don't doubt quite a liberal dose of those who are opposed to this administration and have no interest whatsoever, even in ensuring that an opinion is rooted in some way with the actual reality. And on that basis, I think Transparency International identified about 4 sources.
Dr. Luncheon made special reference to a statement by the IDB resident representative who said based on Guyana's input to projects locally, it is more than impossible for there to be any widespread corruption. Edward Lane, the 6 o'clock news.